came up and down accounts looking like lost and found. Thought about selling dope in pounds. DCs keep my feet on the ground. Low key OD on the counts. Enemies appoint me to drown. Can't keep all these around. Never thought
Welcome back to the City on the Hill podcast. I am your host, Angel, and especially this month, I've been chatting with dads not only across California, but in different states as well. I'm excited to bring you some more content on that. Just everyday dads, just the guys who are, putting in the work every day, learning, growing, experiencing life, being the best support system to their families, their kids. And today, I get to introduce my guest for today. He is my pastor, Adam Smith. A little bit about intro, nice, cool little intro. I worked on this one too. When I first got to California, I was just visiting another church, and it was a beautiful church, and the guy there was great. But I felt like there was a lot of areas in my life where I was lacking growth. I was lacking, I would say fatherly maturity, maturity as a husband, maturity as a man of God. And I know I needed something more intentional. And I have a friend named Larry, and he said, "Hey man, you would hit it off with Adam, like he's super dope." And I remember one of the first conversations we had. It was just sitting in your office talking about just you and your kids and how you see the world. And I think ever since then, obviously we've been going to the church for almost close to 2 years now.
That's crazy.
I think so. We're 2 years in November, because I remember when Star Wars.
That was in October.
October 2023.
Star Wars Day.
Yeah, I love Star Wars. I come out to Star Wars Day. It's great. But from that moment on, not even your message, like your message is amazing. You definitely pour into the congregation, the people. But you're one of the most selfless people I've met out here. Always kicking game, always sharing about fatherhood. Anytime I can have a conversation with you, I ask you 1,001 questions, and I don't feel embarrassed. I don't feel like, oh man, I should know this. Why am I asking this question? It's just like I try to take in as much as I can. And not only that, I try to like incorporate a lot of those healthy habits into my lifestyle with my wife or my kids as well. So I'm excited. I'm excited for people who do see this can now see the amazing man that I know you are, with all the gems you have. So Adam, welcome to the pod.
Man, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited. So obviously I had to pay you to do this, and no, I'm joking. Let's get into it, because I want people to be able to take as much as they can out of this. So usually at the end of the pod, you'll tell somebody what's one takeaway that you would want them to get from this. We'll do that in the beginning. Somebody who's about to get ready to start watching this, what's something that they should pay attention to, noticed? What's one thing that they should hold with them from the very beginning watching this pod?
Man, I think one of the things I think about a lot when I think about just parenting in general, there's this psychological relationship researcher, Dr. John Gottman. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but everything he does is gold. But one of the things that he says about parenting that has always stuck with me is that the best thing that parents can do for their kids is to give them a healthy mom and dad, And so I think all sorts of parenting, you're talking about fathering, really starts with you taking care of yourself, and you actually making sure that your mental, emotional, spiritual health is intact.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just going through the motions. You're really putting on a show for your kids, as opposed to taking care of yourself and giving them who you really are, and who you really are being a healthy individual. And so I think above all else, focusing on your mental health is one of the greatest things you could do as a parent. And everything else is just a hack. You know what I mean?
That's good. That's good. So before we started rolling, I was telling you about a situation with my kid. I won't get into the details of it, but you said something that really caught me, and it was really like profound, but it was so simple. Essentially, maybe I'm messing it up already, and you could kind of speak into it, but it was almost what happened with my kid. It was just something that was just natural. And I put all these extra things on it and labeled it these all things. Like, can you speak to the dads who are in my shoes, who are using or who subconsciously don't realize they're taking a lot of their past into what they see in their kids?
Yeah, man, that's such a good thought. Yeah, I think it's really tough. I mean, again, all of us as dads, we go into parenthood thinking like, I'm gonna protect my kids from all the stuff that happened to me that I hated, and I'm going to give them a better experience than I had. And that's noble. I think the danger is that we can sometimes project onto our kids that they are feeling or seeing or experiencing things that have nothing to do with their actual reality. They're in their own story. They're living there in their own time and space. And I think it's really easy to assume when they're going through something that they would feel about it, or they're doing it or receiving it the same way you would if that were you. Yeah. But they're not you. You know what I mean? They're a totally different person. And I think that's where we have to sort of slow down and not dump all of our baggage on our kids who haven't even lived up to that point. You're also looking at things. I mean, your kids are what now? I mean, they're small,
2
right?
and 6.
2 and 6. So it's like,
or 3 and 6.
You're looking back at your life as a grown man,
right?
And they're looking at the world as a 2 and a 6-year-old would look at the world, right? And so you're adding on all this dimension from being a grown up when they're just a kid, being like, oh, this doesn't mean all that other stuff.
Yeah,
because you're looking at it from way further down the road and adding on all these layers of meaning that don't even exist in their minds yet. And so, you know, kids are way more innocent in the way that they think and act than we think, you know?
Yeah.
We're always playing it out, you know? I remember like every time when my kids were younger, anytime they did anything that I didn't like or made me nervous, I would be like, well, that's it. They're going to end up in prison. You know, my wife would just be like, prison, you know? I'm like, he hit his brother. This is how it starts. This is how the serial killer documentaries start, you know? And she's just like, you need to calm down. But I think there's that little bit of paranoia in all of us.
Yeah.
That we just got to rein it in a little bit of like, okay, there's going to be natural, normal stuff that kids do. And is this consistent with like the stage of life they're in, the stage of growth they're in, the stage of maturity that they're in? And not be so reactive to the little things, you know, because they're taking their cues from us. Like, you know, I think one of the things I've noticed with my kids is like, especially the younger they are, the truer this is. But the bigger the deal I make about something, the bigger the deal it ends up being for them. And the more if I minimize something, it becomes a smaller deal to them. Okay. And so again, you can use that negatively, right? Some of us grew up in homes where some of the things that we really did need to work through were minimized, and that created dysfunction. But it goes the other way too, right? We can overblow something in a kid's life that actually isn't that big a deal. Yeah. And we make a big deal out of something that really wasn't a big deal. And so it's like, man, we don't need to add. Our kids are going to find all sorts of trauma on their own. We don't need to add our paranoia to the mix. You know what I'm saying?
Don't tell me that, though. I have to put my kid in a bubble. Yeah. When you talk about slowing down, though, like what's a healthy way to actually do that? Like if someone's listening and they say, I hear what you're saying, but how do I slow down? How do I get my brain to stop going in circles?
Like in the moment when something's going on? I think like the biggest thing is to, again, there's the New Testament quote of like, be, slow to speak, quick to listen. And I think that's great advice across the board, but especially with your kids, it's easy to kind of see something or hear something and then jump to your own conclusion, which is usually going through the filter of like your experiences, your baggage, your nervousness, your anxiety, as opposed to slowing down and asking questions, observing it, really trying to see it through their eyes. I think for me, it's always like when I hear, one of the big things with my wife, ever since our kids were young, and we still do this, is like, we don't want to be this reactionary presence in their life, right? We want to respond to them, not react to them, right? A reaction is like that knee jerk sort of thing. And it usually creates a lot of like anxiety in our kids. Responding is where we take a beat, take a deep breath, ask a follow-up question. That's not, there's different kinds of questioning, right? You've been questioned by somebody who's like, I feel like I'm being interrogated, and there's another type of question where it's like, you feel like somebody's really trying to understand you and get to know you. There's an innocence to that. And I think like exploring, where your kids are at. And then also I think talking to other parents about what's normal at different stages of life is so, so helpful. Because a lot of times I'm like, my kid's crazy. This is a problem. And then you talk to other people and they're like, oh, no, that's called being 13, and you're like, oh, okay. So I think in the moment of like, no matter what our kids are going through or what's happening, to try and remain as calm as possible, to be like inquisitive and to be the calming presence. I think that's a big thing for me of like, I want to be the calmest presence in my house, as opposed to, I think in a lot of homes, it's like, there's a nervousness that you can palpably feel in the room when people know dad's coming home. Oh yeah. Cause there's this nervous energy that gets kicked up and then dad walks in and everybody's like tense. And it's like, I don't want to bring that into my house. I want my kids to love and respect me, but I don't want them to like be afraid of me or to associate me with like, whenever dad comes in, it's like somebody's in trouble. He's annoyed. He's tired. I want to be a presence where my kids are like, I can be myself. I can say the things I want to say. I can ask questions, and my dad's going to like take a beat, listen to me, not jump to conclusions. He's going to hear me out. If he doesn't know the answer, he's going to take a beat, walk away, come back, and he'll do the homework because he really cares about leading me in the right direction, And so I think like focusing on, but again, if you are not taking care of yourself and you're not calm yourself, then if you're trying to project calm when you're not calm, you're just putting on a play. You know what I mean? And kids can sense that. Kids are smart, man. Yeah,
that's good. You spoke about how you and your wife would kind of like take a beat and just kind of like see the situation. You have 3 kids. Mm-hmm. One of the biggest things I learned from you is not everything works for all your kids. Like knowing how to sit with your kids differently, raise your kids differently. When did you start realizing these type of things? Like all this knowledge that you've like poured into me and you taught me, and you share with a lot of other dads here. When did that be? Well, I guess it's 2 because I want to speak on that. But when did this start for you with like, okay, I want to be the best dad I can be. Mm-hmm. How do I do that?
Mm. Well, I mean, I think like, I think we all come from, whatever our upbringing is, and we have things that we're like, I liked that, and things that we're like, man, I want to do it different. And I think for my wife and I, when we got pregnant, and she got pregnant. I mean, I helped, but she was the one who got pregnant. But like when we knew we were having our first kid, it was sort of like I had that panic moment. I think like a lot of guys do, and just being like, man, I'm not going to be a good dad. This is going to be horrible. I don't know what I'm doing. Right. I hope my kids don't feel about me the way I sometimes feel about my dad. Yeah. And really just thinking like, okay, I think the impulse at the time was like, oh my gosh, we got to figure out what our rules are going to be. But we really didn't really end up constructing like a list of rules. It was more of like, what do we want our family values to be? And we spent a lot of time like thinking and praying about what are the core values of our family going to be? And if we know what those things are, then we can build our life around that. So it's not just things that we say, but the way we construct our schedule, the way we interact with our kids, the way we make financial decisions. Like we want everything to be tied to something. So there's a lot of intentionality to it. And I think like that has served us well. I mean, I remember going out to dinner with my wife, and she's, I mean, super pregnant, and just eating a basket of bread and just writing down and brainstorming like these things we care, and it's still the same 5 things that we have like spent the whole time raising our kids with. And I think that has that's done a lot of like my kids, because the rules change, like the methods change in terms of like what we do for our kids in different seasons, but the values don't change. Like who we're trying to be and what is important to us doesn't change, but how we go at those things changes. And I think sometimes we obsess over like, you know, what things are we going to do instead of what do we care about.
Right.
And then we get hung up on a method that sometimes needs to die, you know, or go away, or just isn't working for a particular kid, you know. And all my kids, I mean, they're so different, but I mean, they came out different. I mean, like Tegan came out and has always been like, you know, social and wanting to be everywhere and be in people's lives. And, you know, those little carriers that you get like for your kids and where you like strap them to you. And normally you strap the kid in, they're like facing you. She always had to be facing outward because she had to be seeing everybody. And then, you know, Cohen was always, you know, he wanted to be like completely wrapped up and like strapped in and away from the world. And so it's like, you know, kids come out with a certain temperament, and then, you know, their experiences and all the things that happen to them. So it's like, I'm going to have to parent them different because they have different gifts, different abilities, different temperaments. Like they're not the same, different struggles. You know, there's stuff that like, especially with the 2 boys, cause they're, you know, close in age, and it's real easy to feel like, you know, that energy of like, why can't you be like your brother? It's like, well, cause I'm not my brother.
Right.
We're different people, you know? And I think if you don't acknowledge that and parent into that, you just foster a lot of insecurity and competition and
that's good
stuff that you don't want in your house.
Yeah, that's good. Why do you think dads struggle with like emotional stability or mental health, or especially when it comes to like raising kids and being vulnerable and transparent? Like what would you say is one of the heaviest things you've seen when counseling fathers?
Well, I mean, I think part of the reason that we aren't good at it is that a lot of us never saw it. And so it's really difficult to like do something that you've never had an example of. Yeah. You know? And I think if we didn't grow up in an environment where our kids were, or where our fathers were like, you know, sensitive to us and vulnerable and showed them what was going on with them, then we just don't know how to do it. I remember like when I was a teenager, just feeling like I went through this whole season where I thought my dad hated me. And he and I have spent some time talking about this, but it's like he just didn't want to spend time with me, didn't want to do stuff with me. I felt like he was just like, you know, he'd take me to school and drop me off. Felt like he was like trying to minimize the amount of time he spent with me. And of course, like every kid is a narcissist, right? The whole world revolves around them in their mind. It's just like a part of where they're at emotionally. And so of course I'm like, oh my gosh, my dad hates me. As I got older and talking back, I went on this train trip with my dad a few years ago and was talking about this time in my life. And he was like, what year was that? Whatever. He was like, oh my gosh, I was in the darkest, most depressive season of my entire life. He's like, I could barely get out of bed in the morning. Like every time I was around you kids, I was just fighting not to cry. And I realized like, oh my gosh, like my dad hid this whole part of his life from me. Yeah. You know? And then of course I just thought, oh, I'm the problem, you know? And so it's like when I fight for trying to be open and honest and real and vulnerable with my kids, I didn't really get to see it. And it's not that my dad was bad. It was just that it was unacceptable in his generation to let anybody see how you were doing. Yeah. And I think we're still fighting that. And also nobody wants to feel like they suck at anything. You know, it's like, you don't want, especially like your kids, you want them to look up to you. And I think especially like, you know, you have little boys, I have boys. It's like, I really want my boys to like respect me and look up to me and think that I'm tough and I can do it, you know? Yeah. some of the most important things for them to see are like when I don't have it all together, and when I don't know what I'm doing, and when I when I lose it and then have to apologize and all these sorts of things. But it's like we have to really die to our ego to be able to do that. And I think that's inside of us. Like we don't want to have to like, die to ourselves in order to show people, even in our own home, like these sides of ourselves. But the weird thing is with kids is like, kids know that something is off. They just don't know what. Right. And so if you don't talk about what they're feeling, right, like when they can feel that the energy's wonky or that something's going on with mom and dad, or like dad's in a funk, whatever, without a reason, a kid will always assume they're the reason. And so I think that's one of the ways that we protect our kids from those moments of thinking like, I'm the problem. My dad doesn't like me. My dad's mad at me. My parents don't want me. All these sorts of things where like as a parent, when you think about your kid thinking that, it's so heartbreaking. Yeah. Because you're like, I don't feel like that. I got my own stuff going on. Kids have no awareness that you have a life outside of them. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Facts. And I mean, when you think about being a kid, your dad wasn't a person. He was just a dad. Your mom wasn't a person. She was just the lady that took care of you. Right. The idea that they are actual people, it takes a lot of emotional maturity to get to that place. And so I think that's part of the journey of like, trying to raise our kids to be emotionally healthy is being honest with them about what's going on and the things that have nothing to do with them, Yeah,
I remember when I lost my dad at a young age. I think that was like the beginning of all of the issues I started having with my mom. Mm-hmm. Me and my mom fought for years. And it wasn't until I got older and I had kids, right? And I realized, oh yeah, like how prideful, arrogant, and crazy of me. Like, yes, I'm young and I lost a father, but she lost her husband. Yeah. The love of her life, gone. Yeah. And trying to raise two boys now on your own. Mm-hmm. I don't think I saw any of that when I was young. It was just me, what I'm feeling, what I'm emotionally, what I can't deal with. And now I look at it and I'm like, wow, like, yeah, maybe it doesn't negate the things that have happened to me. But I definitely can understand how things can get wonky when these type of life events happen. Was there a life event for you? Because I know you shared about like your dad knowing that time frame in his life, and you're saying being open with your kids. Was there a time for you where you had to tell your kids like, "Hey, man, I just don't have it today," or do you still kind of
all the time?
Okay,
yeah, because I think that's a big thing for me is like communicating to our kids like we are people. We are people. And so, and I'm a very idiosyncratic person. I have a lot of like quirks and peculiarities, and eccentricities. And so it's like, I think again, because humans, like we think of things in terms of stories. Yeah. And so when we don't have a story, we just make up a story. And you see this like in every facet of life, but like this is so innate to like who we are and how God created us that you see kids doing this all the time, right? And so when they don't know the story, they make up the story. And when you are a child, right, you are the center of that story. Yeah. And so I think like all our kids growing up, I'm an introvert. Like I have a limited energy for like people, especially big groups of people. I have to have so much like alone time to recharge myself. And that has never been a secret in my house, And so like having conversations with my kids where I try and arrange my life and schedule, especially when they were younger and it was harder for them to understand that they were always getting like these punches of energy from me. But like when they were little, I had a hard time, man. I could not sustain like fun. I called it fun dad energy. Like that, like, yeah, we're gonna have fun and party and like play in the pool for 5 hours. I'm like, dude, I don't got it in me. You know what I mean? I don't want to go to the pool ever again. I cannot do that, And so it was like, so we were like really, and this is where it's important, I think, to get like your partner, your wife on the same page is like, of just saying like, hey, we're not going to do the thing where like you make up a story and cover for me. And I'm not going to do that thing for you too, because there's nothing to be ashamed of to actually say to your kids, like, hey, dad's real tired.
Yeah.
And he works a hard job. And and the reason he does that is because he wants to take care of our family.
Yeah.
And he cares about us. But there's a lot of like pressure of that. And I know you don't need to understand all that kind of stuff, but that just means that like after he plays with you for an hour and a half, he needs to go and like take a deep breath and read a book.
Yeah.
And it is not because he's mad at you. It's not because he's upset. When they were younger, it was that kind of language, because it's like you frame things in a way they can understand at their age and stage.
Yeah.
Now that as they've gotten older, the thing that I've realized it has done is it has given them permission to like understand that like, oh, I have a social battery as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, because I grew up with a dad who was tuned in to like when his battery was charged and when it wasn't, and communicated that to the people around him in a calm way, as opposed to trying to push yourself till you snap, then freaking out on your kids, then they think it's their fault. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the bad way. Like your body and your brain has to recharge. And so you can either plot that out, right? And you can, when you see the warning lights come on, you can train yourself to recognize that and to proactively take that time and communicate that to the people around you.
Yeah.
Or you can ignore that light until the engine starts smoking, and then you just snap. And I think a lot of us, we grew up in those environments where it was just like, you know, dad or mom or whoever is fun until they hit some wall, and then they're mean to everybody. And you're like, what is going on with that? And it's somebody who's just not, they're not aware of what they're feeling. They're not aware of like what, when they're on full and empty, they don't know how to communicate that. So it's always been like us talking openly about that in the family at an age where they, at a way that they can understand. And which is why I'm a big proponent of like all the little tools and tests that you can take that tell you about yourself. Like we take all that stuff and have our kids take it, and we talk about it, because all that self-knowledge, it teaches them like getting to know yourself is a big part of growing up.
Yeah.
But also like the people around you need to understand who they're dealing with.
Yeah.
And the more you know that like certain reactions or needs or boundaries come from who that person is and not because of you, the more you can let them be them. And I think like, you know, that's something that's constant. I mean, even now it's like, man, your mom is going through it. Like she's going to need some time to do the stuff that fuels her. And we know what those things are. So it's like you're going to see your mom buzzing around outside and like pulling weeds that you didn't even know were weeds, and like messing with her flowers. And like, she's going to come in and she's going to like weirdly anger clean the garage. Like that's her thing, you know? And the kids know like, oh, this is her trying to work out like her feeling overwhelmed in life.
Yeah.
And so I think us like talking about that as a family has now given my kids permission to do it. Which is funny when you have like a 14-year-old. So my son does this all the time where he's like, I think I hit my wall like when you were having that small group party. And so I went in the backyard and took a couple of deep breaths, and that's why I disappeared for a while. And it's like, it's funny, but on the flip side, I'm like, oh my God, can you imagine at 14 being that self-aware?
Yeah.
So I think that's the thing of like, that's the goal for me, is like, can they recognize that? And I think, to go back to the original thing you're asking, I think men have been trained their whole life to ignore the warning dashboard lights that come on.
Yeah, that's good.
That say like, hey, you are overextended. Like you are drained. You are like, your emotions are going off. Like you don't have energy. You have an existential crisis. And we're trained to like ignore it, pedal to the floor, keep driving. Let's go.
Yeah.
Don't be weak, you know? And it's like, no, that's how you burn up the engine. That's not how you get where you're going.
That's good. What would be some of the warning signs? You know what I mean? What would be some of the signs that a dad or even a partner can see in a father that says like, there's something up here, or maybe we should take a beat? Like, what would some of those signs be?
Yeah, that's a good question, man. I mean, I think like with a lot of things, it's going to be somewhat specific to that man.
Yeah.
You know, but I think when people are acting out of character and out of alignment with like their values, those are huge red flags, you know? So, you know, I like with me, this is why I think it's so important to like sort of, you know, do temperament testing, do personality testing. Again, that's not a cage that locks you in, but it's
Right.
just a scaffolding so that you kind of have a framework for kind of your base, you know?
Yeah.
But I think like when you know that, like I'm generally like a pretty calm, steady person. I like to joke around. I like to like read and talk about what I'm thinking, and I'm pretty attentive. I like to listen to my kids. So it's like if I'm in a season where I am short with people and I do not come off as calm and my sense of humor is evaporated, like those are red flags for my family.
Yeah.
Because they're like, you are not being you right now. What is going on? And so with another man, that might be a different sort of a thing. You know, a dad who's talkative, who's suddenly kind of quiet, you know, a dad who like, you know, always wants to, you know, go and do something and suddenly just wants to stay at home and sit around. You know what I mean? It's like anytime you're going against like your temperament, it's because you don't have the energy to be you anymore.
Yeah.
And that's a danger zone sort of a place. And that's part of the reason why I think that we do need to like check in with the people around us. I mean, I think one of the most important things, like, you know, a couple that's raising kids together can do is have like a daily and a weekly checkpoints, just to be like, how we doing?
Yeah.
How much we got in the tank? Like, what do you need? You know, because like, again, we want to come in and just assume that everybody's running on a full tank and they're just going to do what we want them to do.
Yeah.
And that is just not real,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I think having that open conversation about, and realizing that, guess what? Some days as parents, you're going to phone it in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's all you can do, you know? Because sometimes you're at your threshold where you're like, we got two options. I can murder these children or I can do kind of like halfway today.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to do it halfway every day, but like, you know, sometimes you are in survival mode, and it's making a plan in that moment to say like, okay, we can't live here, but yeah, there are days when we get home and we are both drained.
Yeah.
And guess what? It's pizza and iPads.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's fine. Now, if every day's pizza and iPads, you need to rearrange your life.
Pizza and iPads.
You know what I'm saying?
Pizza and iPads for sure. Okay, so let's have a conversation in real time. I hear what you're saying, but I also know in the back of my head right now, I'm like, yeah, but I feel bad telling my wife that I need a break. I work 40 hours in 4 days. So I mean, she's with the kids most of the time. This is how I'm really in real time thinking about it. She's with them all the time. I'm usually out if I'm not like doing some content or working for RAG or speaking or whatever the case is. I want to go home and relax, but I also know the minute I get home, she's like, I need a break.
Mm-hmm.
I pretty much, my rest time has to take a back seat. So I guess what are your thoughts on that? Because like, I seriously want to have an honest conversation and tell my wife like, hey man, I need to just stay home today and not do nothing. But I also know, one, I'm wasting time doing stuff in the house that I could be doing at home, right? So I'm letting things slip at home. And then two, I feel bad because they've been cooped up all day, all week. And now I feel almost like, yes, I want to have fun with them and take them out and have a good time. But it almost feels like a little bit of an obligation from feeling like, oh man, like how selfish of me to want to rest my body. You know what I mean? Yeah. So
You jerk.
I know.
You actually want to like have proper sleep. And yeah, you know, I think like, this is it's always like an ongoing negotiation. That's what Gretchen and I always called it. Like our, like figuring out what we need to get and what our kids need to get is this ongoing conversation that evolves over time.
Yeah.
And I think like it's not selfish to say what's real. What's selfish is demanding to get what you want and not letting and refusing to give her anything that she needs. You know, so but I think it's like this is the compromise of marriage and parenting, is like realizing like, man, neither of us are going to be able to construct our lives the way we would if none of these other people were in our lives. Yeah. Right. At the same time, everybody needs to get what they need. And so how do we arrange that? And I think like this is where it really helps to like big picture plan a schedule that works for everybody, you know? And again, there's always like creative options. And I think again, when we're drained and desperate, we're kind of like, we can only see like one or two things. And we're like, well, I can't do A and I can't do B. So like, I guess this is just the way it is. Right. When in reality, there's like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, you know what I mean? So it's like sometimes having somebody else to come in and offer creative solutions with how to arrange life, you know, because some like basic things that it's so funny too. Cause it's like the solution always seems simple after you have it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you're like, why did it take us so long to figure that out? You know, but like the whole desperate time leading up to it, you're like, we're never going to solve it. You know, it always feels like the end of the world. But it's like, you know, some game changers for us, like, again, the little kids running around stuff like was just so hard for me. I had the same thing. I get home. We had 3 kids in diapers all at the same time, you know, and I would get home. I was starting a new job, working an 8-9 hour day, get home completely exhausted, spent time in meetings with people all day as an introvert, and then just being like,
meetings are exhausting.
I'm not going to make it, you know? And so like a couple of things that really helped us, just super practical, of like coming in the door, like when my kids were little, I would like hug my kids and kiss my kids, but like I would stand in the kitchen and talk to mom first. Because I think it sent the signal of like, I love the kids and I want you guys to know I love you. I'm always excited to see you. And also my first priority is your mom. I'm going to check in with her, see how she's doing, see like what she needs. And also like, I think it's healthy for your kids to know the person I'm most excited to see at the end of the day is her. Yeah. I loved her before you got here. You know what I mean? Wow. Like, and so like them growing up seeing that priority, I think is really healthy. And it also communicates like the first thing I'm going to do when I get in the door, and I got a bunch of stuff on my mind that I'd like to do. I'd like to lay down, like to get a sandwich, you know what I mean? All this stuff. But it's like the first thing I'm going to do is check in with you because you are my priority.
Yeah.
And I think just having a standing conversation, usually it was like 15 minutes and the kids are like running around, but like looking her in the eye, hearing about her day, giving her the opportunity to vent about what is going on with her and how she's annoyed. And your son did, it's always your son, you know, when they acted up,
son did.
You know what I mean? He did this and whatever. And I whatever. And I was freaking out and listening to that whole thing. And then just what do you need from me tonight? And then for the two of us, because I needed like a regrouping moment when I got kind of like, this is what she's looking for from me. Then it was like, can I have 20 minutes to catch my breath?
Yeah.
And she was really kind to like, if I could give her the lifeline of being able to vent when she got in the door and listen to what she needed, and she knew I was going to act on a timeline, then at that point I could go in my room, lay down by the fan because I'm a big sweaty man and I just need to cool down and just think, you know, and sometimes like, you know, read a little something, let my mind wander, take a deep breath. And then it's like I had time to like sort of transition and wrap my head around what I needed to do for my family. And then I could go re-engage with the kids. And that was the negotiation we had. But also like other little things like I realized that it was easier for me to hang with my kids when there were other people I wanted to be around that were there hanging with my kids as well. And so realizing like, oh, I don't have to just do this by myself. Like who could we invite over that takes the load off because I'm enjoying the thing. I mean, again, it sounds bad, but it's like, let's be honest, it's not always fun playing little kid games with little kids.
Right.
But if you got somebody else that you like being around where you're like making sarcastic comments or whatever, you're still present with the kids and doing the thing with them, but you're also like, you're it's kind of like it's Pixar mode, right? You watch a Pixar movie and it's like for the kids, but there's all these like little sarcastic adult jokes and stuff, and so you're having a good time, and the kids don't realize they don't understand why you're having so much fun. They're narcissists, so they think it's about them. They think they're making, and you're having fun because intellectually that you're doing something good for your kids, but you're also having this adult experience that you need and crave as well, and figuring out what that is. Like there was this park by our house where I used to like meet up with people that wanted to hang with me, and I'm like, dude, I don't have time to hang because I'm with my kids, unless we meet at the park and then we're just like hanging out while my kids are doing, because it's like, dude, I can throw a ball or play tag while we're like talking and joking and stuff. And I for me, that little hack like made it so much easier for me to recharge. Finding good babysitters, man, that is game changer as well. Of like, babe, let's both take a break today. Sometimes my wife and I would get a babysitter and then go do our own things. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I think part of it is just giving yourself permission to organize your life in a way that works for you. Yeah. That's good. As opposed to the way that you think you should. People that are living the way they think they should instead of the way that they're made to or the way that they need to are just quietly miserable. Yeah. And you have permission to organize your life however you want to. I had a mentor used to say, you are radically in charge of your own story. Like you get to make the rules and set the parameters and set up your schedule. And if you're having trouble doing that and you feel trapped, it means you need to invite some creativity in. That's good. And sometimes that's somebody else saying like, well, what about this? And you're like, your first reaction is like, we can't do that. And like, well, why not? Right. Well, actually, maybe we could, and just trying things. And, we stumbled onto a lot of things I think that were really, really helpful for us, that I don't think I could have survived without.
That's good. That's good. One of our last questions before we close up, it's been so good. When it comes to development of a father, husband, partner, man of God, what are some of the resources you recommend? I know one of the first times I walked into the office, there was literally a wall of books, like a Harry Potter scene. What are some of the good resources that you feel like this is like, start here, or if you want to read something, this is what really worked for me, or like a podcast, or what are any of those resources you recommend?
Yeah, I think one of my favorite books that I think is a great starting place is Emotionally Healthy Spirituality, written by a pastor from New York. So but the thing I like about it is it breaks down sort of the walls that I think oftentimes get thrown up of like, it breaks down the myth of like, you cannot be spiritually healthy and emotionally unhealthy at the same time. Yeah. Those two things are not like compatible. And so he gives a real practical path and talks about the theology of emotional health. I feel like everyone should read that, especially men, especially fathers. Your kids are only going to be as emotionally healthy as you are when they're living in your house. Yeah. And so that's, I think, the first step to tackle that. And in terms of like parenting stuff, there's a book that Andy Stanley wrote a few years ago that I think is phenomenal. I think it's just called Parenting. But the thing I like about it is it talks about how your parenting style has to change in different stages of your kid's life. And that was really helpful for my wife and I to know like what kind of parent we needed to be at each season because of what kind of stage of life our kid was at and what they needed from us. Right. And so those are two big ones that are like, man, those are great starts. And of course you can audiobook it if you want, but those are big for sure.
Yeah, that's good. All right, last question. What's an everyday dad look like for you?
An everyday dad. Man, I think an everyday dad is just like a dad who keeps showing up for his family, and does what he needs to do to take care of himself so he can be there for them. And, that looks like a lot of different things, depending on the moment. But it is a dad who it puts in the work to take care of himself so that he can take care of the people around him. And any dad that like keeps showing up, keeps admitting that they don't have it all together, but they're going to keep trying and keep fighting and keep learning, like that to me is the bullseye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Pastor Adam, tell the people where they can listen to you more, catch you, find you, and the YouTube page. I don't know.
Yeah. Probably the best way is our
Come to
church.
church.
Yeah.
Come to church.
Come on down. I'm here. South Hills Corona is the name of our church. And so we're on all the places, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and, South Hills Church on YouTube, South Hills Corona on Spotify and iTunes and all that. And we usually we teach in series, so it's easy to kind of like, grab like, oh, I'm interested in that topic, and then just jump on board and dive into something. So yeah.
Thank you for being here. I'm grateful, pleasure, appreciate you. You are definitely someone who has helped mold not only my fatherhood but my marriage in the past couple of years. I'm grateful for it. Thank you so much. All right, guys, we are out. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. Like, share, subscribe. Hit me up if anything caught your attention and you want to talk through it more. Shoot me a DM. Peace.
Never thought they was counting me out. I've been checking the boxes, living off sorted dreams and losses. Memories